All right, man, peace. You brothers know where I stand when it comes to Russell Westbrook. I think that he's an outstanding talent, one of the singular great talents in the history of the NBA, one of the greatest pure natural athletes in the history of professional team sports, to be quite honest with you. He's someone, as many other analysts and pundits have attested to. You could see him in the Olympics winning the decathlon or something like that, the long jump, the discus, the javelin throw, something like that. You could see Russell Westbrook being a dominant force in any sport he may have decided to partake in. Maybe even boxing, even though I'm not quite sure if he would have had the brain to become a great boxer, because to become an elite level pugilist you need patience, and I'm not quite sure if he has that. But I could see him as a great center fielder in baseball. I could see him as a great safety in football or wide receiver. And of course in the NBA, he's a force of nature out there. I don't consider him a pure point guard. I just think that he's a jack of all trades, master of none. But every once in a while we come across someone like him who he creates his own niche in his particular era, much like in Allen Iverson, the era before that. So Russell's always going to be remembered. Now recently he surpassed the big O, Oscar Robertson, in all-time triple doubles. Where do I stand on that achievement? I think that is a phenomenal achievement. I also think that it's a byproduct of this new era of basketball, where due to the fact that there's no real 4 or 5 men out there on the floor anymore for the most part. Certain teams you do have a real center, like Philadelphia or the Lakers sometimes, the Phoenix Suns with Ayton, so on and so forth, the Minnesota Timberwolves. But even on many of those teams, they have the center out playing past the three-point line. So it makes it easier for athletic guards to get rebounds. Now, the player that I was able to watch as a kid who was great in accumulating triple-doubles, at least in the 90s, was Grant Hill. Grant Hill was the one who started to bring the triple-double back into style in the mid-90s. And then in the late 90s into the 2000s, you had the great Jason Kidd. The only thing with Russell is that, whether he admits it or not, he knows that his claim to fame is going to be as the triple-double man. That's why I cannot compare him to Oscar, because Oscar did what he did organically. Oscar was a far more cerebral, proficient, and efficient player than Russell Westbrook. Just look up Oscar's numbers. For his career, he shot over 48% from the field. Russell's had seasons where he shot under 41%, under 40%. And that's in an era with no hand checking, where he basically has a free look at the basket. So I look at him as a great athlete who was able to become a very dominant basketball force, but not a great basketball player. I've already told you, brothers, what my definition of a great basketball player is, aka superstar. Someone who can dominate in the regular season or the postseason. If you're only dominant in the regular season, you're a great basketball talent, not a great basketball player. So basically, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Russell Westbrook set the all-time record for triple-doubles after notching the 182nd of his career last night during the Wizards' 125-124 loss to the Hawks. When talking about breaking Oscar Robertson's mark after the game, Westbrook said this: "You put so much into the game, so much time, you sacrifice so much. To be able to just be mentioned with guys like Oscar, Magic Johnson, Jason Kidd, those guys, is something I never dreamed about as a young kid growing up."
And no disrespect to Russell, but he's not as good as any one of those players. But he is a far greater athlete than any one of those players, and that's why he has that mark. That's why he has that record. What those players were able to do was far more organic. People forget that Jason Kidd was able to lead the New Jersey Nets to multiple NBA Finals appearances. They never won. But that was a moribund franchise that he was able to lead to the finals multiple times. When talking about Oscar Robertson, he was the only guard to win an NBA MVP award in the 1960s. Everybody else who won it in the 60s basically was a center. If I remember correctly, it was Russell, Chamberlain, and I think Willis Reed won one in the 60s. And of course, we know about Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is the greatest point guard of all time. Arguably, you can make an argument for him being the greatest player of all time, period. Russell Westbrook is never going to be mentioned there, but he knows where his bread is buttered. It's buttered with the triple-double. And players around the league have known it for years. On camera, they'll say things like, what Russell does can't be replicated. And if everybody else could do it, they would do it. So we can't shit on Russell's accomplishments. But behind closed doors, they're like, he's a fiend for the triple-double. That's why there was that infamous scene of KD and Steph on the bench when Kevin first went to Golden State back in 2016. And they were playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. And OKC was down by like 25. and they were cackling and laughing on the bench because they could see Russell was out there on the floor running around like a Tasmanian devil trying to get a triple-double. And that's always going to be the indictment on Russell, once again behind closed doors. Guys will always respect him for his heart, his stamina, his alleged will to win, because he does try to win the game, but he wants to do it his way. But they're always going to mock him because they know that he's a crack fiend for the triple-double.
Up in LA. Normally I don't like to pat myself on the back, but tonight I will, just because I am so grateful for the ones before me and so blessed. What a quote. Shannon, what was your biggest takeaway from last night?
Skip, I thought it was a classic Westbrook game. He played extremely hard. He wasn't efficient. He was, obviously, efficiency is not his strong suit.
Never has been and never will be. But he's on the perfect team, and that's why he ended up with Washington, because he's familiar with the coach. He knows that that coach will allow him to do whatever he wants to do. Russell is not good playing in a real system. You saw how he struggled last year with D'Antoni until they traded Capella and gave Russell pretty much free reign on the court. If Russell is forced to actually play in a real offensive basketball system, he's going to shoot very poorly, and he's not going to make that big of an impact out there on the floor, because he's going to be so dismayed by the fact that he just can't dominate the basketball. He's going to start to take, especially certain defensive possessions, off. And then he's not a good off guard because he's not a good jump shooter.
They fell down by a great number, and then Russ, being in Russ fashion, he brings them back. Skip, he almost has a triple-double in the fourth quarter alone. He had 11 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds. And it seems like, to me, as the game got in the fourth quarter, his efficiency picked up, because he was 6 of 15 going into the fourth quarter. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, I think he finished like 11 of 22, something like that, 11 of 23. So, but he ended up with wasn't as
10
bad.
Of 22.
10 of 22.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad as going into the fourth quarter as you thought. You're like, damn, Russ, you go.
That's because the Wizards picked up the pace of the basketball game, so Russ got more shots in transition. And that's normally when Russ has his best games offensively when it comes to proficiency. When the game is free-flowing, he can get a lot of layups.
You're going to have one of those type games again. You're going to end up getting this triple-double, but you're going to get blown out in the process. But he will, considering Bradley Beal's not there. Mm-hmm. He got everybody involved. 21 assists again last night with only 3 turnovers. Skip, you could live with that. Normally, the guy has that many assists. He would turn the ball over 5, 6, maybe even 7 times. But he only had 3 turnovers and 21 assists.
What that also tells me is that the Atlanta Hawks have a very poor defense, or at least they played very poorly on defense in that game. And they didn't do a good job of watching the passing lane. Because for a player to have 21 assists and only 3 turnovers, that's horrific defense.
But it was Russ. Russ is a standalone. I think the thing is, we probably need to stop comparing him to Oscar, to Magic, because he's different.
You just figured that shit out? I've been telling you brothers this for the last 4 years. That Russell Westbrook was one of the most overrated players in the NBA. Allow him to be him. 4 years ago, they were trying to sell us on this notion that he was as great as KD or Stephen Curry and all this other stuff. No, that's not who he is. Every era you have players like Russell. And unfortunately for Russell and for basketball fans who may not have been able to see him play, in the aftermath of his career, he's going to go down as one of these guys, one of these players who becomes mythic when other people talk about him, much like an Allen Iverson. If people never saw Allen Iverson play, you think that he was, this person who went to the finals every year and, was like Tiny Archibald in the 70s, was winning scoring titles and assist titles, like a James Harden. And Iverson wasn't that. What he was a force of nature player, much like Russell Westbrook, who could win a game all by himself, but also could lose a game all by himself.
For those guys. I think the thing is because Russ has done this so frequently, and it's not easy to do, but we've seen so many other guys. Skip, I remember in the 80s with Magic Johnson, it was a thing, a triple-double. I never heard of the term until Magic started doing it, triple-double, like what?
Right, well, Magic's triple-doubles were far more organic. And the reason why the triple-double was such a useful tool for great point guards like an Oscar Robertson or Magic Johnson is because basically it would help jumpstart the fast break. And that's what was so relevant and important about Magic getting a lot of rebounds. And he also happened to play with an older center who was already cemented in the NBA and was not going to be diagnosed as a problem on defense because he wasn't getting rebounds, and Kareem. Kareem was older by the time Magic started to rise to prominence, so they didn't ask Kareem to average 12, 13 rebounds a game anymore like he did back in his Milwaukee days. So for Magic to get out there averaging 7, 8, maybe even 9 rebounds a game, it wasn't offensive to Kareem because it wasn't like his contract was resting on the notion that he had to average 25 and 12. So that was one of the rare situations where your guard could be a dominant factor or a high-level factor on the rebounds or on the boards, and the center or the power forward was not going to get upset because, once again, back in the 80s and 90s, power forwards and centers, especially if they were not scorers, they got evaluated based on their rebound average. So that's another reason why back then you didn't see as many triple doubles. Nowadays, you don't even have the power forward position anymore. So these guards and these small forwards, a lot of them, they can flirt with the triple double every game because they don't have some dude 6'10", 250 pounds in the locker room saying, "Hey man, you fuck with my money."
You got double digit in 3 different statistical categories, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. But nobody else was really doing it. No. You get Bird occasionally did it, and you get Magic. But
in the late 80s, you also had Lafayette Fat Lieber, who started to go on a streak of triple doubles, and he's someone who gets forgotten in history. But he was a dominant triple-double factor in the late 80s. And Michael Jordan also had that stretch in 1989. But to Shannon's point, for the most part, it's true. There were not that many players getting triple-doubles back in the 80s because basketball back then was far more positional. So you didn't have as many players like you do today who were asked to do everything.
But for the most part, Skip, that was it. Nobody else was doing it. And then, more and more. And now, Skip, you got 28 different players have triple-doubles. 3 years ago, it was 37. So it's kind of lost some of its pizzazz because so many people, and it was normally reserved for great players, Skip. Only great players got triple-double. You ain't see some willy-nilly guy getting a triple-double. Now you look up like, he got a triple-double? What? So it's kind of lost some of its pizzazz.
I mean, it depends. I understand what Shannon's trying to say, but you also have to grasp that the game is far more wide open today. The players have a more diverse skill set from top to bottom. I mean, you just had a player like a TJ McConnell, the little white boy, I think, with the Pacers, who had a triple-double about a month or so ago. And if you put an effort on the boards and you're able to hit your shooters and just make maybe 3 baskets and 4 free throws, you had a triple-double in this era of basketball. Because there's a lot more asked of each and every player in this era than back in the day. When I say more, I'm talking about the breadth of their responsibilities, not so much the potency of what they're asked to do. Back in the 80s, they didn't ask Kevin McHale to go out there and shoot 5 threes a game and maybe even distribute the basketball. He had a job: rebound, box out, show length on defense, try to guard the rim, and score in the low post or in the mid post. And that was that. But had he been asked, had those skills been developed, he could have been a guy who also, did everything. But once again, it was far more positional back in the 80s.
Because so many random people, not the great, Russell isn't great. So Russell getting a triple-double.
That's a stretch. I wouldn't call Russell a great. He's a great basketball talent, not a great basketball player.
But LeBron getting a triple-double, or Steph Curry, or James Harden, we're like, okay, yeah. But Skip, when the 11th guy on the bench gets a triple-double, Skip, I just saw Sabonis. Sabonis had like 21, 20, and 9.
Well, I have to stop you right there, Shannon Sharp, because you said when the 11th guy on the bench, and then you mentioned Sabonis. That's not fair, and that's irresponsible to, even though Shannon's not saying that Sabonis is the 11th guy off the bench, when you frame your speech in that way, the listener's mind aligns the 11th player on the bench with Sabonis. So Shannon has to project his thoughts or present his thoughts in a far more fluid and directed way, because Sabonis is an all-star. And 10 years down the line, he might be a Hall of Famer. When I see him play, he reminds me a lot of Chris Bosh, except a bit more skillful. He just won the skills challenge this year, I believe, or came in second, something like that. Like, he's not some bum.
I'm like, he good. But Skip, he and Elijah won.
Yeah.
You don't have to be Akeem Olajuwon to get a triple-double, Shannon Sharp.
He ain't David Robinson. And so I think that's what's caused this, Skip. It's lost some of its luster because so many different guys and they're not great players are getting triple doubles and people.
Well, you're saying that they're not great players. Once again, the skill set is more diverse in today's game than it's ever been, and players are asked to do more today than they have ever been in the past. Like the average quote-unquote center and the average quote-unquote power forward today is expected to be able to dribble the basketball without having to look at it. That was not the case back in the 80s and 90s. If a center or a power forward was given the basketball outside of the lane, outside of the paint sometimes, they would look like a damn clown. If you were to ask your power forward or your center to dribble the basketball up the floor back in the 70s or the 80s, you see that a lot of times they would have to look at the basketball. Even Larry Bird, who had a relatively good handle, could go behind the back, between the legs, had to step back. He had a bad habit many times of looking at the ball when he dribbled it. You don't see players really do that today for the most part. At least the percentage is far lower than back then. They're more skilled today because they're asked to do more. It's not that they're better basketball players today. It's just that when Mike D'Antoni brought in that system of drive and kick and everybody being able to do the same things, it made greater demands of the players when it came to being able to dribble, to shoot, and to pass. As opposed to back in the 80s when you had certain players who were asked to rebound and defend.
People are looking at it with them, how hard is it? But Russ is not getting a 10, 11, and 12 triple-double. Dude getting 18, 25, 22 triple-double.
And even if he was getting a 10, 11, and 12 triple-double, the fact that he's getting 35 to 40 of them a year would still make it a great feat.
He's getting 20, 20, 20 triple-doubles. Not 30, 20, 20 triple-doubles. That's different. But I think it's lost some of its luster for the simple fact so many different guys are getting it and they're not considered great players. And so that takes some shot.
By you, they're not considered great players. I consider them great talents. I wouldn't call them great players, but you never know. Once again, you never know where a Sabonis is going to be 10 years from now.
Off of what Russ is doing, but it should not, because what he's doing is exceptional. Doesn't always equate to win, but you know what? I'll take Russell Westbrook on my team.
Skip, you know I'm struggling with them R's. Russell Westbrook.
Team Skip, because he won't cheat me on effort, and that's all I can ask.
I was with you until your takeaway. I don't know that I want Russ to be my point guard in my first playoff game. I'm not sure.
That's the thing with Russell. Once again, that's why I call him the Sylvester Stallone of NBA players today. Great action star, but you're not going to pick him in a drama to play the lead character or the lead role, even though he might do a relatively decent job. Sylvester Stallone has been in a great diversity of movies, and he's done a great job in the vast majority of them. But he has been typecast as an action star because that's where he's at his best. No one in their right mind would want Russell Westbrook as their point guard if they're trying to win a championship.
Sure about that. Just not sure about that. I do want him on my team.
Yes.
I get that.
Yes.
Nobody's ever played harder. Every single dribble possession, every single step of the night, playing
every night.
Is
right, but what does that really mean in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scope of things? We can go down to a restaurant and the short order cook working in the back is some Mexican who's he clocks in at 6 o'clock in the morning and clocks out at 8 o'clock at night. Does that mean that you want to do his job? He works harder than you. The answer is no. You want to do what you enjoy and you want to work smarter, not harder.
Hard as you can conceivably physically play. And to your point, to amplify, they're down 17 after three quarters.
Yes.
They're down 96 to 79 on the road.
Right.
And I'm thinking, oh, well.
I said the same thing.
Oh, well. You know.
You know what I did, Skip? I said the same thing. I thought the same thing you thought. I go in, I said, you know, I'm going to shave. This game is over. Skip, I come back.
You shave at night?
I shave it.
Yeah, Skip, I shave at night. You know, LeBron and Savannah, they don't like to feel whiskers on their back when we lay out in the bed. So, yeah, I try to shave at night.
At night.
Oh.
I shave at night. Skip. So I Skip, I shave at night. So I was like, oh, this game is over. I can shave now. I can just... Skip, I come back, and they're down 4. I'm like, what the hell? It didn't take me that long to shave.
Yeah, I look at LeBron. I said, nigga, get that ankle de-elevated, number one. And number two, tell me what the hell happened in the game.
So, to your point about his stats, almost having a triple-double in the fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter.
He had 10 assists in the fourth quarter. That is his career high in the fourth quarter. Because he said, this is my night,
Yep.
I'm going to do this,
Yes.
and I'm going to run through that figurative brick wall to victory.
Yep.
I am going to will my team to victory. I don't care what it takes. He led all players on both teams in rebounds with 6 in the quarter, which is extraordinary
Right.
in and of itself.
Right.
That would be 24 rebounds for the game. So I'm saying I lost track of just how great he was in and of himself.
Right.
My man Bertans from the Spur, the ex-Spur, he starts making threes, and finally he banks one in from straight on. I said, this is their night.
Yeah.
They got this.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's a microcosm of Russ's career.
Absolutely. And many times the microcosm can tell you all that you need to know about the macrocosm. Every once in a while a player plays a game and plays in a game that almost is a direct definition of what their entire career has been about. For example, Michael Jordan, Game 6 of the 1998 NBA Finals against Utah, that was his entire career, at least with Chicago, in a nutshell. His entire career was that game right there. Having the grit, the heart, the determination, the skill, and the talent to dominate the entire game at a championship level and then finish it off in theatrical fashion. Kobe Bryant in his last game against the Utah Jazz, that was his entire career in a nutshell. I'm going to win the game by myself, by hook or by crook. I don't care how many shots I have to take. I don't care how many misses I have. I'm going to be excellent when I need to be. Of course, the efficiency level is going to be extremely diminished. Who gives a shit? Russell Westbrook, I'm going to put up gaudy numbers, but at the very end of the game, I'm going to make a series of faux pas that's going to cost my team. I'm going to give 100% effort. Everyone's going to lavish me with praise and make me out to be some victim or sympathetic figure, even though it's my fault. Once again, many times there are games played by a particular player where the microcosm is directly reflective of the macro.
Because it's going to come down to, can you make a free throw or a three-point shot to win the game?
Right.
You got to the precipice.
Yes.
Can you look over down into the canyon? Can you leap over into victory? And what happens if with 30 seconds left, he's got Herter on him, and he can take Herter, and he knows that if we could see this, and so he drives on him.
I thought this was an and one.
This is an and one, and he just gets body hammered. That's just a body foul. That's just like a football
Yeah, that was a foul. He should have went to the free throw line on that.
foul.
But if you notice, and this is an excellent control mechanism that the NBA has set up, you can expect to see a lot more female referees in the NBA in the coming years, because these guys, especially due to the fact that they worship the quote-unquote feminine principle, the quote-unquote divine feminine, they will not argue with female referees, because it's almost like RoboCop and his prime directives. He could not kill an executive of OCP. It's the same thing with these mama's boys in the NBA. They could not confront a female referee because they know how bad it's going to look. When in all reality, if you truly were an advocate for equality, you would treat the female ref just like you treat the male ref. And if the media makes a big deal about it, then that can be used as a springboard for a talking point about true quote-unquote equality. But most of these guys, they're not going to think on that level. It just amazes me that people like Draymond Green and Russell Westbrook, they can curse out the male refs, call them everything but a child of God. But when it comes to the female refs missing calls, they just look at them and roll their eyes and run back up the court. So expect to see far more female referees in the NBA.
And Russ is like, give me a break. And he just wills the ball in the basket. He just says, I'm going to force this ball past the front of the rim. It hits hard on the front, and it just goes right over the front of the rim. And I'm saying, and one. And then I sat back and I thought, I don't know if he can make the free throw, because right now he's shooting 64% from the free throw line. He's not what you'd call a clutch late game free throw.
But he been good lately. He was 5 of 5.
Okay, he was 5 of 5. It was his night. This was his history in the making.
It was his night. And that, to me, that does not necessarily mean that he was meant to hit the game-winning shot. To me, it being a Russell Westbrook night means that it went exactly how it went. Dominant statistically, and then at the very end, making a series of mistakes that cost his team the game. That's his career in a nutshell.
And he knew it. So then, They go down and they get a call on the other end where there wasn't a foul called, and they get the ball back.
Right.
And Scotty Brooks doesn't call timeout because Russ has got the ball, and he can just see that look in Russ's eye.
Right.
And Russ goes to link the court and pulls up, and he gets what I thought was a pretty open look from three.
Now this is terrible right here. And I saw in the post game, Isaiah Thomas wanted to say something about Westbrook, but he didn't want to rain on his parade. So he just blamed Scotty Brooks and said Scotty Brooks should have called a timeout. But if you're the point guard, you're supposed to be the coach on the floor. You push the basketball. You're Russell Westbrook. You're getting surrounded by 3 players, as we can see right here. There's a 4th player in the paint. So if you're Westbrook, that means that you have an option of no less than 3 other teammates who should be wide open, assuming that they're running the floor somewhere near you. But that's another part of the problem. If you're the point guard, why are you outrunning your offense when there's 3 guys who are in front of you? That's what I mean when I speak about his lack of basketball IQ. It's just atrocious. And he just does the dumbest things out there on the basketball court, but it gets covered up because he's an elite level athlete. As we can see here, once again, there's 3 guys surrounding him. What is he doing?
I thought this was pretty good. And what does he do? He does his jabby recoil stroke, that little slick back, you know. There's no follow through on it. And it's like wishing and hoping this is going to go in because you.
Now, that's a good shot if you're Stephen Curry or Damian Lillard. But it's not a good shot for Westbrook because he's not a good shooter. And as Skip Bayless stated, he did that little snake bite jump shot that he's done, you know, for the majority of his career, which is one of the main reasons why he's a terrible jump shooter. He just has horrific mechanics.
You got to follow through on the shot. You know what I mean? The great shooters follow through. You know, that jabby recoil that he's got from deep 3, and it doesn't even have a chance. It just nicks the front of the rim, and it was just sort of vintage Westbrook.
I thought for a second he was going to attack Trey and then pull up because he didn't need the 3 skip. You only need a 2, and you win. You don't.
He's outrunning his own offense. There's one guy from the Wizards that's in the paint who's being fronted by the one player who plays on Atlanta in the paint, but Russ is surrounded by 3 players. Like, bro, you have 5 seconds left. You have to be able to orchestrate the fast break better. You have to be able to get your offense ran better. Or if need be, you call a timeout. You're the point guard.
You don't need a 3.
He was going for, he's just going for the gusto. Okay.
It's good. That's it. That's Russell Westbrook.
It is.
Plays hard, not efficient. Shot to win the game. That's a skill. I don't really think that's a good shot.
Well, it's not about thinking that it's not a good shot. It's just not a good shot, Shannon.
Again, he wanted to cap it off by doing something that we say you can't do.
Right.
Because he's just not a good three-point shooter. He never has been.
No.
So right now he's 31.5% from 3. That ranks 155th of 159 qualified. And I'm not raining on his parade. I'm actually...
The issue with Russell is not even so much the percentage. It's the fact that he takes too many threes. And I think that a couple of years ago it got into his head to the point where he stopped taking threes. But, you know, it's something that's called upon for players to do today. There are so many players who are pressured to take threes just because that's the era that we're in. What Doc Rivers has done so well with the Philadelphia 76ers is that he's taken the onus off of Ben Simmons to listen to the media and believing that he should cave in and just start jacking up jump shots and three-point shots. It's very obvious that Ben is not comfortable with his jump shot in a real game and that he's never going to be really comfortable. So just let him be what he is. Great passer, great floor general, rebounder, phenomenal defender. I mean, that's just what Ben is going to be over the course of his career. He's going to be a guy averaging around 14 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, phenomenal defender for his whole career.
I'm actually fueling his parade because he does what he does and he can't shoot.
Right.
And from the free throw line, he ranks 102nd of 109 qualified free throw shooters. And the people below him are named Rudy Gobert, your man, Big Penguin, Andre Drummond, Ben Simmons, Dwight Howard, Clint Capella, who played last night for the Hawks. Okay, so he's
all
down there.
He's
down there with the bigs and shooting free throws. He's a point guard, and he's an he is a first ballot Hall of Fame point guard, and he can't shoot threes.
Well, he's a first ballot Hall of Fame player. I don't consider Russ a pure point guard. I'll say this: he's the greatest transplanted position player maybe in the history of the NBA. Because the way that he plays, he's so super talented, you have to find a place for him. You can call him a point guard if you want to, but I don't view him as someone with real point guard skills. He is a very good passer, but he just does not have that feel. And, maybe I'm being a little bit too hard on him. I just don't see him, because normally he's going to be classified with the Stocktons and the Isaiah Thomases and the Jason Kidds. And I just don't see him as being of that ilk.
He can't shoot free throws. Well, I applaud that, because it's just not, he wasn't blessed with that stroke. Right. He doesn't have that.
Right.
The boy's got everything else.
Yeah.
And as Scott Brooks keeps saying, nobody can impact the stat sheet in all three categories the way he can. Magic couldn't do it. Magic saved a couple days.
You might be out of your fucking mind. If Magic Johnson wanted to, he could have went out there and averaged 22, 12, and 12, and he knows that. Every season he could have done that. At least started from 86 when Pat Riley said, we need you to score more. If that's what he wanted to do. But Magic Johnson wasn't focused on just getting triple-doubles. He was focused on winning championships. Russell knows that at the end of the day, his niche in the NBA, how he's going to be remembered, is as the triple-double guy. So that's his first and foremost priority. Not winning a championship. He believes that if he gets a triple-double, it's going to give his team a better chance of winning the game. So that's how he justifies his focus in his mind. Get out there and get the triple-double, and it's probably going to help us have a greater chance to win. If we don't, oh well, at least I put forth my quote-unquote best effort. But to say that Magic Johnson couldn't do it, Russell Westbrook did, are you crazy? Magic could have averaged 30 a game if he wanted to, and would have shot a high percentage. It just would have wore him out. Scorers are born, they're not made. Magic was not a born scorer. So born scorers like Jordan and Kobe and Durant, they can just go out there and keep firing and take 30 shots, 35 shots, and score 55, 60 points. And after the game, they're not tired. If you ever see LeBron James, when he has those big scoring games, he doesn't have that many. But once he starts to get up in the high 40s, he's super winded because he's not a natural scorer.
So Magic couldn't score or rebound the ball like it. But Skip, normally...
This fool just said Magic couldn't score or rebound the ball like Russell Westbrook. Magic, customarily, wasn't searching for rebounds just to add to his statistics. Like Russell, everybody knows when the opposing team is shooting free throws, Russell stands on... he stands on the the paint line just so that he has an opportunity to get rebounds off of free throws. He does whatever he can to accumulate rebounds. Magic Johnson could rebound with the best of them.
Magic was one of the few point guards, but he was 6'9", so it's hard to say he was a true point guard because he...
No. Him being a true point guard has nothing to do with his height. It has to do with his basketball IQ and his vision out there on the floor. That's what makes him a real point guard, not your height, Shannon Sharp.
Could have been a power forward, he could have been a small forward. Hell, maybe back then he could have been a center, Skip. But Russ is on the free...
I don't know why they talk about basketball like everybody was 6'5" and under before 1995 or some shit. Like, Kareem was 7'2". You know what I'm saying? Artis Gilmore was 7'1", 7'2". Magic was not going to be a center with the skill set that he had back in the 80s.
Free throw line trying to get... When they shoot free throws, Skip, Russ gets 4 or 5 rebounds a game on missed free throws.
On missed free throws.
That's the point.
You don't see point guards are back. They were never on the line.
No.
And that's what Russ is. So give him credit. Skip, I didn't think it.
Well, I'm not quite sure if that's a situation where you quote-unquote give him credit, unless you're talking about give him credit for being a crackhead for triple-doubles, because that's the only reason why he's standing there on the line when somebody else is shooting a free throw. He's trying to put himself in position to get empty rebounds. Because even off of a missed free throw, it's not going to be a fast break situation. You're most likely going to have to walk the ball up. So you're just trying to get that stat.
About 100, because like I said, when I was a kid, triple-doubles was so hard to get. Magic had a great season if he got 10 in the season.
Yeah.
This guy got 32, 33.
I got it. By the way, I was watching a pregame warm-ups last night. I was thinking, because he had on a tight top.
Yeah.
He's yoked up, man.
Yeah.
I mean, for a 6'3" guy.
Well, Russell's conditioning has always been top-notch. Always.
Because he knew, I got to do this. I got to be this physical if I'm going to average 10 boards.
Right, but also keep in mind that he's in his early 30s now, so his body is changing. He's not going to have the same physique that he had at 26.
Yeah, he has to be skipped to kick the kind of pounding because he's going in amongst the trees. He's spending a lot of time to knocking him down, so he has to withstand that kind of punishment. But to give, Skip, I didn't think anybody was going to get. He's going to be over. Hell, by the time he's done, he might have 250 triple doubles. Then I'm going to see somebody who's going to break that.
Nobody. We said that about Oscar, but I just say nobody. It's impossible.
I don't think that anyone would care to try to break it. But you never know. 250 triple doubles. If Luka Doncic plays, 16, 17 years, would it be that difficult to get 250 triple doubles if the NBA game continues along the trail that is continuing along right now?
Impossible. It's just.
He's getting. Think about it. His first 6 years, he only had 8. The man had 8 triple doubles in it.
That's my point. That's why I believe that Luka Doncic may have a chance to break that record. Shannon Sharp, slow and steady wins the race. Russell has had this, this potency factor when it comes to accumulating triple doubles since KD left OKC. But Luka Doncic is someone who's come into the league since 19 years old, just getting 10, 11, 15 triple doubles a season. If he plays 20 years and just averages 10 triple doubles a season, that's 200 right there.
His first 6 seasons.
He did. So what have you said repeatedly on the show about Russ in the playoffs? You don't think he loses any sleep not having won a championship?
No, hell no.
Okay, so I was thinking about you last night at the end of the game because no sooner had he missed that 3 badly that he just seemed not affected by it at all. He didn't hang his head or scowl or show any emotion at all. He turned and he goes right and gets the basketball from the referee. Okay, because he knew all that really mattered last night was not that he missed the 3, it's that he did it again and he eclipsed Oscar Robertson.
Right.
I had no real problem with him going to get the basketball. Once again, this was a momentous achievement, especially for him. But, it does look kind of awkward.
The great Oscar Robertson, who was much bigger than Russ.
Yeah.
And Oscar
Russ was like 6'5".
6'5".
Yeah.
And a big man.
Yeah. He was over 200 pounds. He was probably over 200 pounds.
So.
Yeah, Oscar was a naturally bigger man than Russ. Oscar was one of those players who, kind of like a Charles Barkley, he was, his legs were very prominent. So he held a lot of weight in his legs.
Oh, way to go. I congratulate him.
Right.
And I don't know if he's ever going to win a championship, but boy, he won over a lot.
Yeah, I probably would have went and got that ball too, Skip.
You have to. Shit, if you hit your 600th home run in a game that you lose 10-4, you still want that baseball. So, I don't have a problem with that. It just looks awkward because of how the game ended.
Understand, it's in a loss, you haven't got that ball.
But he didn't even lean over and hurt for a second.
Because once again, Russell validates every game with the notion that he's giving 1,000%, and that if he has these gaudy numbers, that he did his part. That's why.
I missed it.
You know what I think it is, Skip? I think Russ put so much into it.
Yeah.
He says, I'm not cheating the game. It's not like I went out late last night, I'm hungover. He's like, I give everything. Skip, and if a guy gives everything he has in a game, win, lose, or draw, I can accept the outcome. And he's one of those guys. Now, I'm not one of those. I'm a poor loser. Ain't nowhere around it, Skip. I'm hanging my head. I don't give a damn how good I play. If I lose the game, I'm upset.
Yes, Skip. The whole Shannon Sharp James family's like that. Not just myself, also LeBron, Savannah, the kids. When LeBron get down all them final 3 games to nothing, he know he gonna lose, so he just start pounding like a little bitch. I'm the same way, Skip Bayless.
I'm kind of quiet. I want to be to myself.
I watch you lose every day on this show, so I know what a poor loser you are.
But Russ, Skip, I would have really got the ball too. Because at first I was like, okay, why does he want the ball? Did he want to practice his shot again? And then it dawned on
no.
He passed. He broke
history.
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of liked how he said, I'm going to pat myself on the back tonight. I don't always do it. I know. I just thought it was refreshing to hear those words from him. And congratulations all around. Okay.
I agree. Congratulations to Russell Westbrook. Everyone is not born to dominate when it comes to winning in team sports. Sometimes you just have to deal with the fact that in your era, you're meant to fill a certain niche. Back in the 80s, it was Dominique Wilkins, and in the 2000s, it was Allen Iverson. And this era is Russell Westbrook. Also Carmelo Anthony. A lot of players, they're not just No, it's not just about always winning championships. Every era, you only have about 4 or 5 great players. They're normally the ones who dominate when it comes to winning the championships. Russell is not that guy. He has his own role to play. But once again, congrats to him for passing the Big O. Peace.